All right, so I guess it's a foregone conclusion that this young man right here, high flying through the air, 6'7", R.J. Barrett of Duke University will become a New York Knick. At least that's the thought right now, as we're about a month away from the NBA draft at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. I'm Matt Levine. Yeah, I was born in Brooklyn. Thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel. Let's talk a little Knicks, shall we? Please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I thank you now in advance. Anyway, let's talk about the Knicks and R.J. Barrett, who hails from the Toronto, Canada area, an all-world player. First team All-American in his lone season at Duke last year. Shot about 45% from the field to go along with 22 points, 7.5 rebounds, about 4.5 assists. In addition to being a first-team All-American in college in his lone season, in high school, you guessed it, he was a McDonald's All-American as well. He's got all-world talent. I think he'll be a great mix, a good fit with the mix that the New York Knicks are hoping to create. Let's talk about that. Now, of course, I am a long-suffering New York Knicks fan. I am admittingly a New York Knicks fan. Not hard to find. Guys like me. But here's the deal. I've never seen a Knicks championship. I was 3 months old in '73, do the math, when the Knicks won their last championship. I enjoyed the heyday of the 90s in college, high school, when the Knicks made the playoffs 6 times, came oh so close. And back then, it was almost oh so good enough because Madison Square Garden used to rock. And now I am admittedly a New York Yankees fan, New York Giants fan, Rangers fan. I've seen all 3 of those respective teams win championships. Several for the New York Giants and Yankees. Almost 10 between the 2 teams. One glorious one for the Rangers in '94. That's when the Knicks had their closest chance back in the days. And you had these guys battling, right? Mace, Oak, Doc, Starks, the face mask, big old Patrick right there, number 33, the man in the middle from Georgetown. Knicks came close in '94. The Riley years were great. He departs. Van Gundy years, I'd take him, not too shabby, of course. A spirited run in the '99-2000 strike-shortened season with Latrell and Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, an older Patrick Ewing, who was fading due to injuries. Made a gallant run through the playoffs that year. And then the tide changes for the Knicks. In comes the new century. Out goes the winning. Now, as I'm getting ready to do this little report here, okay, and talk about the New York Knicks, I, for some reason, started thinking about this guy. And how awful the last 2 decades have really been. I mean, I survived the Isaiah years. We all did. How bad were they? Well, think of the Isaiah years from 2003 to 8. You had Marbury. You had the Larry Brown experiment. Poor Herb Williams. Then you had Isaiah himself becoming the coach. Eventually, class act he is, got himself into trouble with sexual harassment charges. Isaiah was finally out of New York with the Knicks. I hope that's the case forever and ever. May he be best remembered as a Detroit Piston and part of the Bad Boys. Enough said. You move on to the Donnie Walsh era, which they got Carmelo and a few other players, and there was a little appetizer, taste of winning again, 2012 and 13. Tyson Chandler, Amari Stoudemire, who had some glimpses and flashes as a great Knick for just a little while. And we had Melo in his heyday, and they won the division, made it to the Eastern Conference semis, were booted by the Pacers. Phil Jackson comes in. You know the deal. So much hope with Porzingis. He gets shipped out, rightfully so. A story for another day that I've talked about already. Phil Jackson leaves. This guy comes in. He takes over the reins as Scott Perry, the new GM. You know, he looks like an older Dennis Johnson. He used to play for the Celtics. May DJ rest in peace. What a great basketball player he was. The older I get, the more I appreciate how great those Celtics teams were. Same as the Lakers. Really do. The epitome of teams. And that's what you're hoping happens with the Knicks. So RJ Barrett, for all intents and purposes, again, should become a Knick on June 20th, Thursday, on the draft. Unless the Knicks upend, wheel and deal for this guy, Anthony Davis. How about those Pelicans in New Orleans win the Zion lottery? I don't think Davis cares. I don't think he wants to stay there. Would it be a mistake for the Knicks to trade for AD and begin an era? I think so. I think what you do, it's the obvious. You acquire RJ Barrett through the draft. I think he's a nice fit. He's a good character guy. I think he's just an all-world player. Around draft time, he turns only 19 years old. He's a baby. They all are now in the NBA. You've got a couple other babies on the Knicks. You got this guy, and I'll talk about what I think they should do. I know he had a horrible season in Kevin Knox. Shot like 37-ish% from the field, 12 points, only an assist. But he's barely old enough to cast a vote for the president. Not really old enough to order a drink at the bar. He's a baby. The other encouraging sign you saw was this kid who was drafted 36th in the draft, right? Skipped college altogether, out of high school, out of basketball. And that's Mitchell Robinson, who is great. 21 years old, averaged 2.5 blocks last year for the Knicks in about 20 minutes of play. About 7.6 rebounds. The sky is the absolute limit. So there are some encouraging signs for the Knicks, some young players, maybe a Dennis Smith Jr. who came over in the Porzingis trade. You saw some flashes, like on April 9th. Went for 25 points against the Bulls in 35 minutes. 5 rebounds, about 5 assists. And you saw, I remember watching that game and thinking, if this guy's on, you've got a heck of a player you can plug in at the 1 or 2 in the backcourt. And then the question becomes, if you get Barrett and you keep him, you don't trade for AD and go down that route, what do the Knicks do with free agency? There's a ton of money. And nowadays, when you attract these elite free agents, I mean, they want the max contract, but they make so many ducats in other endeavors, endorsements and whatnot, right? For soft drink companies, for shoes and this, that, and the other thing, and investments. And these two guys are on the radar. Mr. Kyrie Irving to the right, Mr. Kevin Durant to the left, respectively, of the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. Both of them can become free agents this summer. They're buddies. And you want to know something? A lot of folks knock New York. Why would anyone want to come to New York? Especially the Knicks. I know they've been horrible under James Dolan, as I've already hit on through the different eras, into already the 2019-20 season. Hard to believe. But I think those two right there are two that are established. They have rings. We know that. They have enough money for lifetimes. I think it's pride. And I think each of them would love to pair up and be the ones that lead New York basketball back to the promised land, become basketball sports stars, gods in New York City. I think they would love that challenge and they would eat it up. And they both would love to pair up and have the responsibility and be able to say, we put New York back on the map as far as the Knicks in basketball. You mix in a blend of some of that youth and you get Barrett at number 3. You attract some other role players via free agency, and maybe you have a shot. I'm optimistic. What else can I be as a Knicks fan? That's all you have is optimism and hope. And the good thing right now, coming off a 17-65 season, the Knicks are in it for 2019-2020. Let's see what happens at the draft next month or before then, potentially with a trade. Either way, guess what? Whether you like it or not, the Knicks appear to be relevant for the first time in a long, long time.